convention that we felt like was truly built from the ground up to be very inclusive of everyone, like make everyone feel like they really belong in the world of fandom, because they do. Everybody deserves a seat at the table and deserves to feel comfortable and safe attending events, and not to be shut out of like networking opportunities and fun stuff to do. So that was the original impetus, and it's been so much fun that we keep doing it, just because it's the number of awesome people that we've met along the way, and just how much everyone, including us, looks forward to that weekend in October every year. It's not that big a stretch to say that sometimes people do go and then come out a little bit changed on the other side of it, and at least in terms of their new friends and their new thoughts on things, and like rejuvenated inspiration.
I think the conversations is what Jesse means. When you come out of it and you've had all of these amazing conversations that you don't necessarily get to have in everyday life, people who are smart and funny and usually quite goofy, and it's becoming a family.
With a plethora of options at the new hotel, it is important for us to organize a game plan to feed our mind, our body, and our soul. And to help us do that, we have romance author Janet Walden West to help us figure out our soul portion. Then we get our body ready with Chaotic Good Fitness. And finally, we test our minds with RJ Joseph, author and director of the Learn Track. And no organization is complete without acts of service. And tonight we have an opportunity for you all to embrace that and get your ticket to this great event as we turn the spotlight on the Multiverse Convention with your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody. Sorry about the little faux pas at the very, very beginning. For those of you watching this on replay, or probably didn't notice it. It was pretty quick, but anyway, I apologize for that. It's live and I clicked the wrong button. It happens. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spotlight on the Multiverse. I am Joe Compton, and I've got Janet Walden West with me. So enough of me yapping. Janet, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to our audience for me.
I'm obviously Janet Walden West, and I write urban fantasy, paranormal romance, and contemporary romance. So, I just hop from genre to genre there.
That's awesome. How many times have you been to Multiverse?
This will be my first. I'm a Multiverse virgin.
Yeah, nice. What made you decide to attend Multiverse?
I had heard really great things about it from a lot of other convention goers.
Mm-hmm.
What I consider my home convention is Con Carolinas. That was the first one that I ever attended. So, and it's where my writers group came from as well. And so everyone there had nice things to say about it. The continual crew, like Gail Z. Martin.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I really need to check this out.
That's awesome. Yeah. I actually attended my first Con Carolinas last year. So I was supposed to go this year, but things didn't work out. But so I love that. I love that crew. I love certainly Continuo is a sister of ours, and so we're that's awesome. Anita's here and Tiffany's here. Hello. So that's awesome that this is your first time. Having been to Con Carolinas and probably several other conventions, are you planning on selling at this convention, or are you just there to be a guest and be on panels and things of that nature?
Fingers crossed, I will get a table and I will be selling.
Nice.
So
awesome. And Jesse says, welcome, Jesse, the co-chair of Multiverse. Yes, and that's awesome. Panel wise, there's not like a specific, there's a fantasy track, but there's not a specific romance track. I saw some interesting panels that might be of interest to you. I was curious, have you looked at the survey yet?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I took an entire night and checked out the survey.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, Multiverse sends out a survey of all. I mean, this is standard fare for all cons, so most people should know what we're talking about. But they sent out a survey. It's a Google form that basically lists all the panels that are possibly going to happen at Multiverse, and gauge your interest, and then they decide who's going to be on those panels based on that. So a little education for anybody who doesn't know that. But was there certain ones that caught your eye? Would you like to pitch yourself for any of those right now for us?
There were so many. I have to say, I don't like the not interested option, because there's a lot of stuff. It's like, I'm definitely going to be in the audience. I'm just not qualified to sit on the panel for it.
I saw a lot of those myself. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
There's
There were
definitely
tons.
quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I love, a lot of the whole geek fandom, movies, television, other authors. So there were a ton of things that look great on there.
Yeah, one of the cool things about Multiverse, and we've talked about this before on the show, but I think for a first timer, I think this is really something interesting. The way they space out the panels, they give you ample time to get from one panel to another panel, which is great. But also, I think the one thing about the Multiverse scheduling is that they try to accommodate your sensibilities in a way that you'll be able to go and see most of what you want to see. Now, that's not always going to be the case. That's never the case with any convention, but the opportunity to plan accordingly, I think, is very, very prevalent here at this convention. I'm sure that's something that probably excites you as somebody who might be attending a lot of these.
It does. And it's nice to know that there's a little time in between. So you're not, doing that thing where the authors that are sitting at a table are counting down to the end of the panel. And then it's like a mad rush, like gold rush when they open the lines up to try to get to your next one.
Well, and a lot of that is also, what I actually was late for a panel at Con Carolinas because I got enthralled with the panel I was watching, and it went way over. Which, it's unusual. That doesn't normally happen. But on this particular panel, Jim Nettles was hosting, so he was the moderator. So Jim and his concept of time, I love Jim. But when he gets going, it gets going, and so I had to run all the way across the other side of the hallway which Multiverse is a lot bigger this year in terms of the hall space, but usually it's within one space. But they do space it out. It's usually 30 minutes between each panel, so if it does go over, which oftentimes these panels can tend. It does offer that opportunity for you. You don't have to go. You get some steps in, but you don't have to be right. So that's really, it's not like Dragon Con where you have to go to 3 hotels. Yeah.
Yeah, and fight the crowd the entire time.
Yeah. Jesse says panelists with stuff like books to sell should have time to meet the audience members, potential customers, and chat after panels too. Yeah, that's another great option for that. Yeah, and that should be standard fare for a lot of conventions. What's your favorite thing about attending conventions? What do you love about it for you?
I mean, it's kind of a two-part thing. I love, being with my people. And as a writer, after a convention, okay, the first 12 hours after a convention, you're sleeping and trying to get your voice back. But after that, you just feel, just so rejuvenated and energized. You've got ideas going like crazy because you've been, you spent probably a whole 3 days with other people discussing the same things, that you really can't discuss with the rest of your wider friend and family group.
Yeah, I totally agree. And con crud is a thing, and con crash is a thing. So yeah.
Yeah.
What's really cool, and I think this is really, really apt for first timers this year. I think being a first timer this year is probably the best time to be a first timer, because we're all really going to be first timers this year because we're in a new space. There's a new vibe to it. There's going to be a bigger, a lot of people are excited about it. And those of us who've seen the new space are even more excited about it. Is that kind of a comforting aspect of it for you too, that you're going to be in a new space and a lot of people are going to experience what you're going to experience for the first time?
It does. I think I'm like most authors, I'm an introverted extrovert. So, when you're walking into a group, and you don't know anyone else, and that they've been together for years, it's a little intimidating. So, hearing that everybody's going to be hitting it for the first time is nice.
Yeah. As somebody who's sold at a convention before, what and being an introvert extrovert, as you self-proclaimed here, is selling to authors a little different in your perspective, or is selling?
I I think it's all selling. Like I said, I had watched some of the other multiverse spotlights before, so I know what I was getting into. And a lot of authors have said, I'm terrible at selling, and I'm definitely one of those people too, because basically it just turns into you're in a conversation, with someone else who loves books, and you're talking about your favorite authors and what just came out, and oh my God, did you see that cliffhanger? So you kind of forget the selling part.
You mentioned that you have particular fandoms and things of that nature. Is there a particular one that really, really caught your eye that you were looking at that you're going to go, I'm not missing that?
I have a list somewhere, so I'm just going to have to pare my list down. It is kind of how it's going to work.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really great that you have a convention that has a lot of choices. Then,
Yes. Yes, and I think the attendees will be really pleased with it too.
yeah, I think it's the really cool thing about multiverse. I think when you go there and experience it, it's one thing to talk about it, which we do it exorbitantly here, but it's one thing to do that, and then to experience it is a whole different thing on top of all of that. So I think it's an interesting dichotomy, if you will, because I think there are people who have experienced it and haven't had the same result that myself and several others who've been on the show have had. But I think that is one of the beauties of multiverse. It kind of weeds out the people that maybe this isn't right for, in that respect.
Right. I'm really excited about the academic tracks too. I mean, that will be a
Nice.
first for me. I don't know any other convention, even RWA ones, that had anything like that. So that is fascinating.
And Miss RJ Joseph is standing by waiting for us to talk about that. So we're going to be really excited about that. She waved, by the way. Nobody else could see that, but only I could see that. But so that, I agree, and I'm real excited to talk about that today too. But do you have a lesson? Are you thinking about doing something for the learner track?
No, no. This year I'm just going to be sitting in the audience and taking it in.
Nice. That's awesome. Possibly the future, maybe then?
Maybe, yes.
Maybe. Oh, cool. Awesome. So let's talk about you a little bit. You've kind of made a journey through your romance aspect of things, and like you said, you cover a lot of the romance elements of basically all genres in a lot of respects. Have you gravitating toward urban fantasy now a little bit more? Have you felt like that is more of your wheelhouse, or do you feel like you still want to explore other aspects of the romance genre?
It's really funny because I consider myself an urban fantasy author first.
Mm,
When I first started querying, looking for an agent, that was my genre. Everything that I had written was urban fantasy. And that was about the same time that the market was contracting. And the only
yeah,
people, getting urban fantasy deals were Patricia Briggs, Faith Hunter, people, that had been in there for a while.
sure.
And after several years, and I don't even know how many, rejections, I got frustrated and decided, I'm going to write something else. And I just started writing. And it turned out I've always enjoyed, not even necessarily the romance, but the interaction between people, the character growth when I'm writing urban fantasy or when I'm reading it. So it's I just kind of started down that road looking at characters a little bit more than outside plots. And it turned into a contemporary romance. And so that was the book that got my agent, and so that was my.
Do you is there a different? I would imagine there's a different pacing to contemporary versus urban. maybe a little bit. And I mean, obviously, there's set rules with contemporary
Right.
romance that are very rigid in a lot of respects because the fan base is so rabid, and fan base for urban fantasy has become very rabid as well.
Yes.
But there's a little bit more leeway with that aspect of it. Do you find the structure of contemporary romance interesting to you, or do you feel like it confines you too much a little bit?
No, I don't feel like it's confining at all. Every genre has, tropes and outlines that you're going to have to stick to. If there's no action in your urban fantasy, if there's, no red herring in your mysteries, your fans are going to be angry. So the biggest thing with romance is you better have a happy ending. Happy for now, happy forever. You better have a happy ending, and that is just the one thing that you have to hit. Once you do that, you're okay.
Even in urban fantasy?
Urban fantasy, I feel like, is a little bit different since you're usually following the same person or the same couple all the way through a series. So, and that works out well because I'm personally a fan of the very slow burn romance.
Nice. Are we talking stuff on the steamier side, or you write more of a tame romance?
It's definitely on the steamier side. There are open door sex scenes in most of my books. So I have some short stories out that do not have any overt romance in them, but everything else is, PG-13 at least.
What do you? I'm curious to know because I've actually talked about this on this show a little bit too, and on other shows, but because genre blending is becoming so, just it's very weird how blends are coming around, and the catchphrase, the popular nomenclature right now is romantasy. And are you in that? Do you feel like you're in that group, or do you feel like that's kind of like saying speculative fiction for everything else? You know what I mean?
Yeah, romantasy is its own niche. It certainly got a big kick with Holly Black and
Yeah,
her series, and of course now TikTok has found it, so it's a thing.
yeah.
But
But
they
I
are
think,
very much their own group.
but I think,
It is. Yeah,
yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have no idea what I was about to say, so
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
it happens a lot.
But no, I think though the thing I'm noticing about it on TikTok is that people are mislabeling a lot of things that would be considered that part of that grouping, and kind of lumping it in there, which I think is weird for that because it does have a set genre rule set,
Right.
and it's kind of interesting to me because romance is. I mean, you could have romance in anything, right? That's
Right.
the cool thing about romance. But it is once you cross a line or you take it to a certain point, it becomes labeled as romance as opposed to having a sci-fi story that has romance in it, like a Star
Right.
Wars, for example, right?
Right.
So, do you like it? So playing with that, is that something that you're thinking about maybe if you want to go outside of the box with different genres? Do you think
I'm
you'll
not
always
gonna
have a romance element in it, basically?
I'm not going to say never because I do enjoy reading it. I've gotten on just a huge kick, and like I said, I've kind of decimated Holly Black's, backlist this year. But it has very different expectations now, and it is of course very different even from softer fantasy. So I'm not sure that's something I would ever see myself writing.
Hmm. And Anita says Fourth Wing really helped the romantasy genre as well.
Oh, definitely.
um, so tell everybody a little bit about your current urban fantasy series. Tell everybody a little bit about it. Give us an overview.
It is another one of those weird mashups because we have monsters in it. We have vampires and ghouls and we have monster hunters, but most of it is based on biology instead of magic. It's the monsters in the books are all cryptids. something like Mothman or, a Yeti, things like that. And I've had a lot of fun walking that line, between soft sci-fi and urban fantasy.
Mm.
But it follows a kind of sketchy government group of, hidden soldiers whose entire job is to save clueless humans from these monsters that they don't know exist.
kind of a cabin in the woods kind of nice way to put it, to help people instead
Yes,
of
a little bit.
sacrificing to the gods. I, people can obviously hear that you have a nice Southern accent. So
that is a nice way of putting it. Thank you.
So something I know about the South very well is that there's a lot of urban legends. There's a lot of nice little things you can draw upon in that vein that you're talking about with cryptids and things like that. Is that something that you leaned on a little bit? Was those roots to kind of where you're at and being in the South and everything? Do you find that is helpful for furthering your series a little bit?
I think it definitely does. I mean, if you have grown up in the South, you have been surrounded by, folk tales your entire life in one form or another, even if you don't quite realize it. Whether it's, you sat around with family and great uncle, whatever, has told you about his experiences, or you've hit any of the historical sites and just read markers there. There's always something. So, and one of the creatures that gets a lot of airtime in this series is basically based on skunk apes. That it is a very southern creature that is kind of like a redneck yeti that has personal hygiene issues.
I love that. That kind of leads into my next question. I was going to ask you about create, because you say you're a character based writer. You delve into characters. So do you give your cryptids profiles? Like, do you give them human characteristics? Do you have anything relatable that you kind of push to kind of give them, a good arc or push them into the character sphere?
I do, actually. Part of the cryptids involved are, of course, more, animals. They're, basically large, stinky skunk dogs or something like that. But then the team is also slowly discovering that some of these cryptids that have been hunted nearly to extinction are actually, very much like people. They're sentient, they have culture. Some of them can blend in perfectly well, with a human crowd. So that has created for them this huge moral crisis. Part of what they do is very important and needed, but now they're realizing that everything that they have learned has not necessarily been the truth, and they have probably done some things that are actually horrible in the name of saving humanity.
Are you someone that leans on authenticity when it comes to, because I'm a military guy, I was in the military, in terms of, and following the cryptids and their etymology and everything, their origins. Are you someone who is very keen on making that authentic for the reader? Do you feel like that's an important aspect of what you do and how you do it? Or because it is urban fantasy, do you take more license?
It's kind of half and half. I think every author has learned the more of the background details that you can nail that are perfectly authentic, the more leeway readers will give you with the fantastic. So, a lot of these creatures I've, kind of tweaked their origins. They're natural creatures. They have their own biomes and behaviors and, diets, and that plays into how, the team handles them. Like, there's one creature that, has a yearly migration. So you just kind of ride herd on it and make sure they stay away from humans during their migration.
What is your best advice for someone who may want to delve into cryptids, and especially down south? What would you say is something that you would tell somebody who asks you, "Hey, have you heard of this monster? How do I go about putting that into a story?"
because I have an academic background, I would say hit up your local university, both the history department and the anthropology departments. There's a lot of crossover between culture and tales in both of those. And that's going to be a great place to start.
Nice. Well, it's going to be awesome to meet you and have you at Multiverse for the first time, Janet. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you and explore your world and everything you're doing. Tell everybody where they can find what you're doing and how you're doing it, and give us some titles so that people can know what they're going to go and buy, because people who are watching this are going to come to your table and buy stuff. I guarantee it. So tell everybody, give us a little preview of your elevator pitch to us.
My most recent series is Region 2. Those are the, kind of sketchy monster hunters we were talking about. Mm-hmm. And actually, I will have book 6 in the series out just in time for Multiverse.
Yeah.
So, yay, exactly. And there are only 2 more left. So the series is almost finished for those who like to wait until, it's completed to read. And you can find me everywhere as Janet Walden West. I'm occasionally on TikTok, but I usually hang out on Facebook and Twitter, X. And I have a readers group that everyone is invited to join.
Nice. You like the TikTok model? Is that something you enjoy doing?
I like to watch it. I like to go down rabbit holes and lose half the day.
Yeah. When I first got on there, it was like almost like stapled to my hand. It was like glued to my hand.
Yes.
Don't staple your phone to your hand. That would be stupid. But I was like literally entrenched. As you do with anything over time, that's waned for me. But I mean, there is still some magic behind that element of things.
Definitely. I mean, TikTok is a great place for authors, and it's a great place for readers to find their next author. I personally just do not have that much talent behind a camera.
Well, hopefully, and I have a feeling that your words do speak for themselves and are probably something that everybody will enjoy and get involved with. So everybody go check out the Regency series. Go check out Janet and what she's doing, and say hello to her and to tell her that you saw her here and that you wanted to come to her table because of that, and buy some books from her, please.
Thank you. Yes. Come talk fandom. Come talk books.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, we'll be right back. We've got a little break here, and we're going to get ourselves in shape with some chaotic good fitness, and then we're going to bring on RJ Joseph, talk a little bit about the Learn track that we're all excited to learn about today. So we'll be right back. Thank you, Janet.
Bye. Thank you.
Regardless of what's out there for you, your body is your temple. Isn't it time for you to take control of your own fitness and well-being? To tell your story. In Dungeons & Dragons, Chaotic Good is a character alignment that reflects one whose heart is pure, but who does not take the law at face value. They question authority and forge their own path based on their own value system and morals. They value freedom and individuality over social norms and rules. CG Fitness views fitness and health in the same way. We are client-centered, body-positive. We focus on the individual client's needs and goals without trying to fit them into the standards set up by the fitness industry. Each client has a unique background, goal, and body that deserves to be valued and considered when working together. We don't expect all of our clients to look, act, and feel or need the same thing. Some clients want weight loss programs. Some join us for the pain management and reduction. Others have worked with us for pre-surgical body change needs. No matter why you come to us, we will find a way to help you level up. There is no one-size-fits-all magical answer to fitness and health goals, and there is no one-size-fits-all body shape. There's no quick, easy route to take. Making health improvements is hard work, but we are here to guide you through the journey. CG Fitness is about making improvements at your pace for you. So now let's pull out your character sheet and roll for that initiative. So if you're interested in how Kira and her team can help you, you can go to chaoticgoodfitness.com/services. So choose your path to better health and good fitness and tell your own story at chaoticgoodfitness.com. Another great sponsor of Multiverse, and they put on a show last year that everybody still talks about to this day. So everybody go check it out if you're going to be attending Multiverse. They're going to do some more of that this year. It's going to be awesome. They're such a great group, and we're happy to highlight them here on the show, as we are RJ Joseph and the Learn Track. Today is exciting. We're going to talk a little bit about a track that we don't normally get to talk about very often here, but it is so unique to Multiverse and so interesting. So I'm real excited to have you here. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself first before we get started so that everybody can be introduced to you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me today, Joe. I'm really excited. I'm always excited to talk about the Learn Track at Multiverse. About me, I am an academic, creative, editor, person of all trades. And it's always been really important to me that academia be accessible to everybody. Of course, I get some pushback on that from, my fellow academics, but it's okay. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. But I think that there's magic that happens when you can actually boil down this really academic concept and break it down for like anybody, even sometimes we have kids in the audience, to be able to understand it. Like I think that's what really makes you an expert, when you can do that. And so on the Learn Track, we get to have people who do exactly this.
And yourself, you're an author. Tell everybody.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I am an author. I do all the things. So I write predominantly in the horror space, which is writing creatively and academically. So like I tell my students all the time, just like I have deadlines for them, I always have an editor that has deadlines for me. And they go, "You write this stuff like just for fun?" And I'm going, "Well, yeah, don't you?" And so most of my writing carries over those topics, popular culture, the horror genre, the intersections of race and gender in the horror genre and pop culture, all the fun stuff.
For those who haven't never experienced the Learn Track, and I've been to a couple presentations. I went to DL's presentation a couple years ago, and for those who haven't experienced it, though, talk a little bit about the uniqueness of it, because it is a tad different from everything else that you would experience at Multiverse. So tell everybody, give a little bit of a design of what the Learn Track really is for people who've never experienced it before.
One of the things that I think is really, really cool about the Learn Track, and I am totally biased, but I mean, just even as an academic, is that if you imagine the coolest ever academic conference you never went to, right? So anybody that's gone to these things, they go, "Oh yeah, we're going to have these brilliant minds. They're reading these academic papers. They're literally reading the papers, and it's great and it's wonderful, but it's kind of like school," which again, I dig it. I love school. Oh, that's why I work at a school and all that stuff. But for other people, I think that can be a little off-putting because they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I have to know all this stuff." But the thing about Multiverse is that we specifically require that these topics not only be related to speculative fiction, but also that the presentations be accessible. So you won't come into somebody just reading a paper. What you're probably going to walk into is something more like slides that one year we had a presentation on dragons like how dragons would actually exist. And so Tanya Ransom, who did that presentation, showed all these slides that said, well, if they really existed, they'd have to be this size and their skin would have to be made of this. So just think like the coolest learning program you ever thought you wanted to know about, but live and in person.
I did the screenwriting panel with her last year, and at the end of it, we were talking about her presentation. She was real excited about giving that presentation.
That's what we love, Tanya. I mean, as long as she comes, I think it's going to be a whole party.
It is unique in that respect. And we should tell the audience, there's no testing or tests or grading or anything. You're just there to kind of get. It's like being in a lecture hall in a certain aspect, but it's more interactive than that. Even the people that design presentations design it with the idea that they're selling themselves and selling what they're doing on top of that. So it is more interactive in that respect. They do. The ones I've been to have been just as interactive as anything you could imagine at Multiverse. I mean, maybe not on the level of Monster Mash, but
sure.
A little bit calmer, but a little bit more sitting and a tea time kind of idea, right?
Yeah, well, and the thing is, our presenters on the Learn track, they are so immersed in these worlds that they present on. So like this year, I'm super excited that I get to work with an assistant director, Kenneth Broom Jr., who is also like one of our alumni, if you will, on the Learn track, who is always happy to talk about monstrosity. I think last year's presentation kind of focused on monstrosity and grief, and is very happy to start talking afterwards about movies and what do we think about this movie and what do we think about that movie. I mean, so it's like cool school, you know, the kind of thing that you kind of wish you would get. And I get excited about these presenters because a lot of times they are fellow academics, and I go, oh my gosh, I would totally take your class.
Was this kind of this idea born from your academic background? You went to Seton Hall, right?
Right? I went to Seton Hill. No. So when from its inception, Multiverse had a Learn track, and so I did come on from the beginning to do the compiling of the presentations. It of course was made easier for me in that, you know, I have done the grad school thing. I do academic presentations myself. But I've been just floored at how much, I mean, I talk to people all the time and they'll go, well, I learned this thing. I did this research, and I'm thinking, bring it to the Learn track. Like there are some people who spend their whole days in the Learn track because we're trying to learn this stuff. Like I have no problems with spending my time in my track room all day, every day.
I love that. You mentioned earlier about that this is the interesting juxtaposition about this track being at Multiverse. You know, that academics are kind of, the notoriety of academics is elitism, right? There's a certain thing about, you know, I'm a college graduate versus you non-college graduates kind of idea. I mean, and it shouldn't be that way, but there is that idea. And so bringing the inclusiveness of Multiverse into a world where it's typically exclusive, there's this kind of like peanut butter and chocolate effect to it a little bit. Have you felt that kind of something that you and we're realizing that they're not as different as people might think. They come together pretty well.
Sure. Well, I mean, like I talked to my friends, there have always been Gothic studies, right? There's always been like literature studies. And even when we start talking about the social sciences, we've always studied people and being able to talk about these things. Like we understand that academic language is one thing, but accessible language can and typically is a totally different thing. And so what's really magical is that we're talking about this stuff at a level of depth that that you expect at the Academy, but you didn't expect at your con, right? I remember last year we had a sociology professor who showed us how he totally gamified his intro to sociology class. And when I say we were just floored, right? Because we're going, oh my gosh, can I do that for my class? Or if I ever had to take this intro to social class, I would totally do this. And so I think that Multiverse is one of those magical places where academia meets the outside world, and then it just creates all this glitter and magical stuff where we learn stuff and we don't even know we're learning stuff, right?
and yeah, I think we're always growing and learning too, and that's a cool thing. And the multiverse really cultivates that aspect of everything. You know, it's really, you really do. If you go in there like a sponge, you will absorb a lot of really interesting and unique things that you've never experienced before.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes. And some of my favorites are things that we just don't think about putting together, right? We had a presentation once about how Korean dramas can help you with your writing process. And so I'm going, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. We've had
Did Lisa teach that class by chance, maybe?
I don't remember who that class was on, but we've had Lisa has done other kinds of presentations like zombies as consumers. And I mean, I'm like, or consumers as zombies. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And John Edward Lawson does this wonderful work about zombies, what they mean, how they represent like racial tension. I mean, just all this brilliant stuff. And then we get to talk about, you know, okay, so if vampires really existed, how would that work?
Yeah. Yeah, because Elle Marie Woods, who runs the horror track, she and I had a conversation exactly about that. That's why I mentioned that about Korean horror, because we both are very big fans of that. So it was kind of, I was kind of like putting two and two together there for that.
Yeah, she's brilliant. Yeah, she's done other presentation type stuff, and she's another one that I'm always trying to tap. Like, come on, just walk. It's just a short walk to this room. It's right there.
Are you excited for expanding the space a little bit for you this year too? Are you excited for the new space and maybe having a little bit more of a presence in a larger presence for yourselves over there?
Yeah, sure. Oh, I'm super excited about it because, again, I mean, anybody that's ever gone to academic conferences, you know that it's kind of it's almost a gamble. Like you might have an audience and you might not have an audience. You know, we're really lucky at Multiverse that even in the smallest audience of spaces, I'm going to say like those early morning panels, we're very lucky that we do still have people that come in. And so to have more space for that, where we can spread out a little bit more, where more people can come. Like I said, the past couple of years, I've noticed that there are some people who spend their entire time in there. And I thought that was really exciting. And I'm going, oh my gosh, like they're comfortable. This is great. Let's make this even better.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. And Jesse mentions that we hear comments year round as people are discussing something exciting to them. Oh yeah, I learned X about that in the Learn Track last year.
Yes. Oh my gosh. When I say we have presentations that they're things that other people are experts in, that all of us just don't necessarily know. We may have a passing interest in, but then they come and they talk and you go, oh, this is a wonderful thing. And then now we're all besties going to class together.
Yeah, we're in the bar talking about 3 hours about, you know, cryptids or vampires, right?
Exactly.
Or dragons. Which is great. That's the whole sole purpose of it.
It really is.
I think a lot of academic conferences and academic studies, that's what happens. You gravitate. You're walking out of the room talking about it, and then you realize, okay, we've walked a mile and talked about it for 20 minutes about the same thing we were just talking about, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, kind of piggybacking on the Learn Track into and pivoting into what you do as an author, I'm curious, how much time do you invest in looking at presentations that offer a wide range of diversity for the track? Is that something that you're really keen on, making sure there's a good wide range of diversity, not only in the representation of those presenting, but what they're presenting?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. The one thing, oh my gosh, I love that Multiverse has this wonderful reputation. Allie and Jesse have built this thing that is just stellar. And so it makes my job a lot easier when I go to somebody and say, hey, there's this thing that we're doing. And oh, yeah, you've heard Multiverse. Yes, Multiverse. Why don't you come get on the Learn track? I'm always like pimping out these proposals, everywhere that I go. And it's a lot easier because of what Multiverse has built. And so we do get a lot of diversity. As far as like last year, I was very excited because one of my personal plans for world domination is bringing younger people into the academy, right? Like I tell my students, like, we need you to get used to this thing, start doing this work early. And we had an undergrad student who was presenting last year. He did wonderfully. It was perfect. He said that he was a little bit nervous, but he handled it like a pro. And so it was really exciting to be able to give him that line on his CV. So he's able to say, I presented at the Multiverse Convention, and it's totally on the up and up. And so I like that we can kind of blend these things together because, I'm that little lady that's always in the lobby talking about, okay, wait, Multiverse is still coming. Y'all do know that our call for papers is still open, right? As a matter of fact, I was looking at the calendar invite for this meeting, and I was like, oh, I need to put that on social media again. Our call for papers doesn't close until June.
Yes, so, everybody. Yeah. So get out there. Something you want to talk about. Yeah. I mean, and I think ultimately the goal of the Learn track, like any track on Multiverse and Multiverse itself, is that you want to get further out, outreach to further things that haven't been talked about before, or something new to present, right? Because there's going to be people who present some things that maybe have been seen before, maybe in a different way or a different manner, but also having that new person or that new experience, that's really important for Multiverse.
Oh, it's so important. I mean, and even if you don't lean academically, right? I get that it's not for everybody. It's not everybody's thing, and that's great. That's cool. But I mean, even think about in terms of the research that we do just for our writing every day. Like I am writing this this Western horror that has taken me forever, and I'm always learning new stuff about. Oh, well, I didn't know that was a thing, right? So just think about like all those rabbit holes we fall down when we're trying to craft just one scene. We've actually learned reams and reams of information that on the Learn track, that could totally be a presentation. Like, share the wealth, share what you've learned, share with the rest of us.
Jesse says also, and if academics can get their institutions to cover their travel, I mean, win-win.
Well, exactly. It is a win-win. So people that do come from academia, who do need to do some presentations, kind of do some publishing, get out there. I have had my campus pay for part of me my going to Multiverse also. So we're very happy. If you're an academic, we have beautiful letterhead. We can send you this really pretty, beautifully worded acceptance letter that you can submit for your institutional funding. I mean, come on. Like, well, how much better can it get than that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In the horror community, I think this year was I think the last couple years, in HWA especially, and horror, it's taken a step forward, right? We had our first Latino X win was Bram Stoker, and this year we had an African American win for the first time. The big Bram Stoker Awards, and so are you feeling that vibe? Is that energy palpable for you as somebody who's academically putting students out there, and maybe they before weren't thinking about horror because that it wasn't as inclusive as it's becoming, or do you feel like it is? We still got some ways to go, obviously, probably, but do you feel like that there is a shift happening right now?
Oh, there's absolutely a shift happening. I also work with Bridget Keown on the Anne Radcliffe part of the StokerCon. I mean, because it's like, I mean, I have the experience, right? It's like this wonderful matching thing. And I do see that this is opening up. And it's because of spaces like Multiverse that offer this as from its inception. This isn't something that was like shoehorned in at the end, right? It's not like something that was given just a little tiny piece of a corner. Somebody goes, yeah, Allie or Jesse goes, yeah, just give them a little bit. No, this has always been in the plan. And so I'm really excited about that as an academic, because I can tell my students, listen, I know that right now it's very painful to do these papers. I know it's very painful to do this writing. However, there is a world outside of here that welcomes this, that understands that speculative fiction studies, they do go more deeply than what I think a lot of people would have admitted in the beginning, but it's always been here. Again, we've always had Gothic studies. We've always done literature studies. I mean, we've always done these things. And it's like, when we're doing our science experiments, like lots of this is based in our science fiction fantasy. So, I mean, they all go together, right? So I am really excited to be able to say that, yes, academics can nerd out too. And as a fact, and we want you to do that at Multiverse. We want you to do that.
As a POC author yourself, are you excited for the future? Do you feel like there is a shift in your own writing? Do you feel like you yourself are putting something out there that's going to actually be seen and talked about?
Oh, I think so. It has been, I mean, I've been a longtime fan of Bino Iglesias, Sino Pelayo, who won the Stokers last year. I've been reading Tanana Review since she first started publishing, like in the early 2000s, right? So, I mean, I was really, really geeked to see her, finally get those flowers. I do see that things are a little bit different. I talk to, my writer friends all the time, and I'm like, okay, wait, I feel like something happened and we missed it, because like at first it was super hard to get in and to do these things, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, so now we're seeing these works on these awards lists and these best of lists. And so, I mean, however the momentous the time was, like, I just feel like something happened. We've gotten to a different place, and I really dig it. I love it. Let's kind of stay here and let's keep going from here. It's really exciting to see these voices highlighted. Like, I mean, I wrote a whole short story collection that is Black female centered. I did that on purpose, right? Mm-hmm. And so to me, this is what we do. This is normal. But to have the industry kind of going, you know what? That was horrible. In the best way, let's nominate it for a Stoker Award, right? Let's nominate it for a Stoker Award, because it's just terrible, but we love it, but it's terrible.
I mean, and having representation like Jordan Peele and folks like that has really probably helped that kickstarted a little bit further, I would assume. So.
Oh, of course. Well, I mean, there's also a really important thing that happened at this year's Stoker Awards was that Elmarie Wood won the Mentor Award, right? And so that's yay, right? I just love Lisa so much.
She's one of my favorite humans ever. I just she and I can just pontificate about movies forever.
Exactly. I mean, and this is really important, because for her to serve as a mentor is helping writers that are coming along behind. It's important for people to come to Multiverse and see that our track directors it's not just diverse, but I'm thinking we just kind of run the mutts. And so it's not like, we're just saying these things. We're actually doing these things. We are people of color and people of other marginalized groups in these positions where we can bring about diversity, where we can let everybody have a turn at the mic. And it's really exciting to see those shifts happen, but they don't happen without a lot of work. So we have to do that work. We have to mentor other writers coming along. We have to do things like work on putting together programming for conventions. We have to work on being editors and compiling essays, and we have to be in the classrooms, right? This is really important. I've had so many students who kind of go, by the end of the year after working with me, they go, oh my, They go, "You're such a hippie," but I never thought that I could be a professor. Maybe I can do that too. And I'm like, that's exactly why I'm here, so that I can show you that you can be this Southern hippie that loves the weird stuff, and you can still go get a degree in that and go to work and get in the classroom.
Yeah, writes terrible, horrific horror on top of all of that.
Yes, and writes some terrible, horrific stuff too.
Are you a fan of the way that horror is going in general right now? Do you feel like it's because horror has this unique? I always say this about this genre in particular, genre I love and the genre I've been a part of in the film world, especially. But it has these unique ups and downs and valleys. People gravitate, and this is a product of Hollywood and the big five. Jumping on something that's popular, right? And where we had our vampires, and actually, interesting. I don't know if you've heard about this, but at Jordan Con, I was on a panel where we were talking about sea creatures and horror, and somebody in the audience brought up that the relationship between vampires being popular and other cryptid and then something else, I think it was sea creatures being popular, was all based upon the political landscape that we were in at the time. Sure. Oh, it was zombies and vampires. And so whoever's in power, if the Republicans are in power, then it's zombies. If it's vampire or I forget which one is which, but
right.
That aspect, as an academic, I would think that would be something you'd be like really like, wow, yeah.
Yeah, well, of course. Well, I mean, Stephen King really hit the nail on the head when he talked about how horror is impacted by what's happening in the world right now, right? So horror is definitely having a moment right now. Extreme horror is having a huge moment right now.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Yeah. I mean, and I dig it. I think that when I first met Brian Keene a couple of years ago, because I've been a fan of his since he's been publishing too, but I've just met him a couple of years ago, and wonderful guy. He says, he's listening to my story. He goes, "You're an extreme horror writer too, aren't you?" And I'm kind of going, well, I mean, yeah, like when Brian Keene tells you this is what you do, right? And so I go, yes, but I am very much so a Gen X extreme horror writer. So I am the splatter punk in the vein of the original terms, like, power to the people, that kind of thing. Like how, So I think it's really cool that we are starting to see a bit younger audience come in. I do hope that, because I get excited about that, like we have to stay fresh so that we don't cannibalize ourselves as a genre. What I do hope though is that we, as we do this, we continue to make space for our veterans though, for the people that have been here. Joe Lansdale, Stephen King. We have, I would like to make sure that we're still talking about the Ronald Kellys, the Steve Rasnick Thames, the Mort Castles. Because this stuff is really important, and none of us would be here doing this if they had not kept at it, and if they had not, or we're not still doing what they do. So that's the one thing I don't know. I don't like that they're trying to put our seasoned writers, kind of some people, out to pasture. I'm like, no, that's not the way this is going to work best. Like, let's all play together. There's room for all of us. So I do like that we get to have these different spins on these tropes, though. Like I've wanted to get my chance to write, Black vampires, right? That because I'm like, you can't be tired of it yet. We haven't got enough Black ones yet. I haven't seen a lot of Latino ones yet. Can we do that first? I haven't seen any disabled ones. Can we do that first and then say the trope is dead?
And Anne Rice really helped the LGBTQ community with the way she wrote vampires. So
well, I mean, because Dracula from Stoker was so erotic, it was so homoerotic. I mean, I don't know how anybody could have thought that was not for gay people. Like, are you serious? It's so very gay. I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. And that's the really cool thing about horror. Horror can be a lot of things, and it can bridge a lot of gaps, which I think is, which is funny that you get a warm hug from something so horrific, right? So
exactly. That's exactly it, Joe. You got it.
Jesse says, we love for people to go home from Multiverse with new knowledge, interests, ideas, friends, inspiration, etc. And the Learn Track is a huge part of that. Absolutely, 1,000%.
Oh,
Couldn't
yes.
say it
Thank
better
you,
myself.
Jesse. It really is. I mean, we get top-notch proposals in. I know that it seems like it's an easy thing, right? Like why we get to set. So Kenneth and I sit and we look at the mailbox and we go, oh my gosh, that's wonderful. But I mean, people are really doing some amazing work. And it's really exciting to be able to see that, especially as it's in these research processes. Because I will be quick to scream and holler when somebody finally publishes that chapter and I'm going to go, I remember when they did that on Multiverse on the Learn Track and they were here. I'm totally going to be like that auntie that says they were here first.
He says, thanks for being such a great track director from year one.
Oh, thank you, Jesse. Thank y'all for being such wonderful organizers. I keep coming back because y'all are great.
We're very lucky that you do keep coming back because your enthusiasm is infectious and what you do is so important and it's so unique to Multiverse. So I really appreciate the opportunity to have this opportunity to speak to you for the last 30 minutes about this because, I don't get the opportunity to do that. And so it's awesome that you're here. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tell everybody how they can get involved with the Learn Track. You've got a couple weeks left. I know that's asking a lot of somebody to put a presentation together in a couple weeks, but hey, we've all done it in our schooling before. We've all run into deadline. So tell everybody how they do it.
Kenneth and I already know. That's one thing I did tell him from the beginning. I was like, okay, listen, up until now, our job has been pretty steady like this. It is about to be go time. As academics, we already know we will get this deluge of presentations on like June the 29th, right? And we probably will, be honest, get some on like July the 1st or 2nd, right?
Yeah.
And I'm usually pretty open about that. I'm going, I know life takes us fast. The days come up fast. So the official deadline is June 30th. The call for papers, the details can be found on our Multiverse website under, I believe, the Get Involved tab. And again, I don't want anybody to feel, well, I'm not an academic. This is exactly why you should probably come to a presentation because you're presenting to other non-academics, right? So come talk to us about that special thing that you know so much about. I promise you somebody else wants to know about it too.
Absolutely, 1,000%. And RJ, tell everybody where they can find your work.
Well, so it's a running joke in my circle. I finally have a website. And so I have to say that every time I do something because I have it always. So I have a website, RhondaJacksonJoseph.com. Typically, I'm hanging out on social media, sort of lurking about from behind at @RJacksonJoseph. And that's across the gamut. I kind of did the Brian Keene suggestion. He's so brilliant where he says, just stake out the real estate, whether you think you'll use it or not. And I'm so glad that I followed his advice because I go, oh, I do have a couple of things on TikTok like ever in life, but whatever. I'm there. I'm there watching videos even if I'm not posting. So I'm usually hanging about at @RJacksonJoseph across the mediums.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And we'll be right back, everybody, to close out the show. One of the important things about Multiverse, along with the Learn Track, is that they depend on volunteers. And so they've opened up the opportunity for you to be involved with Multiverse. And this is a great way to get involved with Multiverse. If you're not a featured guest, if you've not submitted a presentation yet for the Learn Track, this is a great way to see behind the scenes of how all this happens. And it is by volunteering. So here's a little something about the volunteering, and then I will be back to close the show. Is that time of the year again where we need you. Volunteer applications for the Multiverse Convention are now open. Join us and become part of the team, because Multiverse would not exist without the dedicated help of the wonderful folks who volunteer their time and skills to make it all work. It's a great way to make friends and experience the convention from the inside. All people, interests, abilities, and skill levels are welcome. The details are on the website. Hey, you never know, you could do a good enough job just like this guy did as a volunteer and get your picture taken with the bosses. That being said, volunteering is a really good way to get into the Multiverse Convention because it allows you, if you perform 12 hours of service at Multiverse, to enjoy the con itself. So, what are you waiting for? Volunteer today, and you can learn more information about the Multiverse Convention and volunteering at multiversecon.org/volunteer. Again, another great way to get involved with Multiverse. I mean, I think I've seen that guy somewhere before. That guy that I mentioned. If you do a good job, you get get a chance to take a picture with the bosses. Maybe he looks familiar. But ultimately, volunteering is so important to every con, but especially to Multiverse. And Multiverse does it in such a great way because they not only give you, I mean, obviously you're going to work, you're going to do some work for them, but you're going to see they're so open. It is so easy to access a lot of things that you might not be privy to at other cons because Multiverse is cultivating that family culture. And so this is a really great way to become part of the family and become somebody who will be a part of the family for as long as you'd like to be. And that's so important and so great about Multiverse. And volunteering is a great way to do that. So if you haven't thought about an avenue, or you haven't thought, well, I'm not a big enough name, or I can't be featured as a guest for some reason, or maybe I'm just not sure if this is the right place for me, volunteering might be that way to learn all about that for yourself. So definitely take that as an opportunity to do that. Applications are open, and they would love to have you. So please do read the instructions, read the rules, and read what is required of you. That's as important as well, as is anything else you do. Multiverse lays it all out for you very, very, very succinctly. So please do engage in that and make sure you read all that to make sure that it is something you can do or something you want to do. You can do it, but something you want to do. All right, everybody. Well, that does it for our show this week, for today anyway. We do have another show on Friday. It's going to be an exciting, fun show as always. Got a couple great guests, and I'm really looking forward to that and talking more about Multiverse as I do each and every week. And thank you for joining us, and thank you for being here. And remember that it's always time to go in now. We'll see you again soon. Bye, everybody.